What's up, guys? Welcome to Weigel Friends English. Today we're going to talk about different ways you can learn English.
Yeah, so there are a lot of ways out there. We know that. We have personally experienced that. And today we're going to kind of give a brief introduction for some of the ways that we've heard or experienced how to learn a language.
Yes. So we're going to give you guys 6 ways that you can learn English where you're at or online or different methods that you can do that. And we're also going to share a little bit of our experience after that, those 6 ways. And then we're going to give you some of our things we've learned.
Pro tips.
From our experience here.
Yeah, and we're going to use kind of price as a way to organize these. So from the most expensive to the least expensive ways that generally speaking, that you can study a language, specifically English.
Yep. So first one is definitely in-person classes at a training center or a university. These tend to be quite expensive. They can also be cheaper if you go to like a community college in the States, for example. That might be cheaper than private tutoring.
Yeah.
But it really depends. But by and large, in our experience especially, we spent far more money on university classes than we did anywhere else.
Right, and it's one of the main reasons is because they have to spread out that money that you're paying them across a lot of different facilities and personnel and all these things that come with a traditional classroom where you go in there, you sit in the chairs that they paid for and study and look at the whiteboard that they paid for and
study under a professional in the field.
Yeah, which is really cool, and you get to learn a lot. But it also tends to be one of the most expensive ways to study a language.
For sure. So if you don't need that degree, you might not have to go that route. Now, we've had experience. You can do this in your own country. You can also do it abroad in the country that speaks English. So either one, we've had experience doing both ourselves. The second way that you can study English is by private tutoring, whether in person or online.
Yeah, and we do this a lot, but we've also done this in our learning Chinese. And private tutoring is really, really good. We're going to talk more about that in coming videos, so stay tuned to that. But one of the big advantages of it is that you get to be more personal and more flexible with the private tutor than you could in like a big class of 30, 50 students.
Absolutely. You get that personal connection and you're going your pace, not the pace of the slowest person in class.
Right.
So,
and that can be really frustrating to have to wait on other people when your language is ahead of others. And that's a really, really difficult thing in a language class as opposed to another kind of class. So if I'm a physics student, it can be easy for me to measure exactly where I am or exactly where I struggle with. And English and language arts, they're just more difficult. And so tutoring is a really good option for a lot of people because you get the help right where you need it.
And specific to you and your level right where you are at. So if you want to spend more time on one concept or just zoom through another concept, if your tutor agrees, you can pretty much do that. So It's a pretty cool way to learn. The third way is online courses.
Yeah, these are actually becoming more popular nowadays. You have things like Coursera or
Udemy
or Teachable. There's a lot of content that is actually being created now for learners of all kinds of skills, including languages.
Yes, and these are super nifty because it depends on how they're run. But these can be drip feed content where the teacher or the instructor controls exactly how fast you go, or it's completely self-study and it's all video recordings of classes, and you also might just work through a private tutor along with the course as part of the course fee. These can range from anywhere from like $20 to $2,000, $3,000, depending on the course, and there's a huge range here on expense. But you usually get kind of sort of what you pay for, but you also don't always know what you're getting when you pay for it. So,
right. And a hard one for this specifically is a lot of times you pay for the course as a block. Yes. And that can be kind of scary when you look at the price tag, but really when you break it down and you have that flexibility to run through it however fast, however slow you need to, it's also a really good option.
Number 4 is online group classes. Now, group classes might function through an online course, or they might have a textbook that they all share and go through, or it might just be whatever, like a tutor type situation where the tutor or teacher creates whatever you're going to study that week and you jump onto the online class. hopefully in a small group setting. You don't want to typically have more than 6 to 8 students in one online class. It just gets too crazy.
Yeah. And another kind of variation of these online classes is some of the things that we experienced even when we were in China, which is more of like an English corner.
Yes.
Again, it's more group oriented. It's not necessarily focused exactly on the teacher. There's more social learning, all of which is really good.
Right.
But in an online group class setting, it can be really difficult to balance the fact that you are one of many students that the teacher
Right.
has to teach. And so you kind of lose that time and lose that instruction time for every student that gets in the class.
Yeah, it's definitely not paced to you as an individual. It's paced as the group as a whole, which for some people who are more extroverted, that's totally fine. But for others that want to move a little bit faster and have more specialized attention, you might look more for private tutoring in that case.
But it's also really good for pricing too, because if I have to teach one student, I have to spend an hour of my day and I have to cut out an hour of my day for that one student. But I can easily make it to where that 1 hour I can split and I can teach a group class of 5 students. And those 5 students can come on, and honestly, the price per student can go down significantly.
True.
But one of the big hard things is that if you miss the group class, then it's just kind of missed.
It goes on without you.
Right. With private tutoring, you have some flexibility. With group classes, that you kind of lose that a little bit.
Another thing you could do is number 5, which is to invest some of your own funds up front to buy your own resources to study yourself in your own time, pretty much alone.
Right. And this is going to be different from the last one we're going to mention, but these are paid resources. So whether that's buying a grammar book or buying an English book or a TOEIC book or whatever it is.
A set of video classes
right.
that are pre-recorded.
Just something where you have content and you can work through that content, but you're going to do it all completely on your own. It is an option, and we have used that option in the past, and it continues to be one of the good things that you can just kind of do when you have a little bit of extra time.
Number 6 is to consume all free resources. There's the internet. There are so many freebies given out by people. Just sign up for my newsletter and you get a free PDF thing or ebook or just all kinds of stuff. My free online course or whatever. And these are great for a lot of things. And if you're very motivated and you already have a structure that you need to follow and you have a study plan and you are very self-motivated, this might be a great option for you. But it also requires a lot of time. So
right. You have to comb through a lot of free resources to find good free resources, and that takes time away from actually studying. But it's free. So it's a good place to start, especially for people that maybe don't have a lot of funds and a lot of upfront capital to invest in language learning, and we totally get that.
So one of the problems with free resources that we have found in the last 2.5 years of using them is that we don't always know what's good quality.
Yes.
Some of them are right up our alley or just right for us, and some of them are very not professionally done or very obviously taught by somebody who hasn't learned another language before. So one of the problems with the free resources has been there's so much out there that we just don't really know what we're getting.
Right.
Certainly when we start. And unfortunately, though we're not paying money, we are paying our time. Which right now, time is far more valuable to us than money at the moment. Time is of the essence when you're learning, and you don't want to just waste your time with either bad resources or with resources that are not what you need, and they're just never going to get to what you need them to be.
Right.
So that's the unfortunate part of free resources is there's so much out there. You have to, 1, spend the time to go find them. And number 2, you have to spend the time to test them and see if that's exactly what you need.
Yeah. It's really what we would call a mixed bag.
It is.
Where you don't know whether the thing in the bag is going to be really good or it could be not so good.
Right.
And so that's the biggest disadvantage of free resources.
Absolutely. So what are our experiences doing some of these methods? Like, which ones have we done?
So as far as language learning goes, we started with formal traditional classes in university in the States with languages like ancient Greek and ancient Hebrew, and those are really good. They use a lot of grammar translation method, and we paid for them. a lot. But then we actually went to China after university, so we actually started to transition to more private tutoring. But we also were experimenting during that time with taking university classes. While we were teaching in that university, we actually took Mandarin classes in a formal classroom as well that was provided for the English teachers there. So we've done a lot of the more expensive stuff, but we've also done more of the less expensive side as well.
So we also did some things like we did free English corners, and we did where we did lots of exchange, like 50% English for 50% Mandarin with some of our friends. So like free private tutoring kind of. So we talked about that, some of the pros and cons of that in a couple of videos last week. We've done lots with resources that we just find or people just give us, or we've done lots of podcasts online just to listen to because they're free. We've done a lot of just online looking at stories and an app on the phone and different things where we try lots of different things. We've really explored the free resource state because we didn't want to commit to a paid class while having 2 kids and starting 2 businesses, moving back to the States, and we didn't want to spend the money it took to commit to something that would keep us on it for longer. So on that note, how about we go over and we just talk about a little bit what our experience has been with each of these.
So we've experienced pretty much the whole spectrum as language teachers, but also as language learners. So the question comes down to, what did we learn from it?
Was it worth it?
Was it worth it? And for our experience, ultimately, it does come down to the fact that each of these different methods can fit certain circumstances. Yes. So the student, whether they don't have the capital or don't have maybe quite the interest, yes, some of the less expensive methods can be extremely useful for them. It's extremely useful for me to be able to pull up my phone, open an app, and listen to Chinese without having to pay anything. Yeah. All of it is free resources that I can consume very, very easily on a daily basis. That is amazing. That is something that honestly we didn't have a whole lot of because we just didn't know that there was those resources. What we learned from our experiences across a whole spectrum of ways that you can study a language is, number one, is that traditional classes, it's really hard to get away from the grammar translation method.
It is.
It's really hard not to go just to the classic route of tests and quizzes and grades. And part of that is just inevitable.
Also, academic English. That's often what they're teaching in university, which makes total sense in university. If I'm taking an English class, I expect to learn the English I need to be using immediately. It makes sense. However, what we found in all the languages we've learned in a university and all of the settings in country and out of country, we were learning very, very standard language that was not spoken around us. So what we were learning, we could apply to the textbook and we could do the exercises in class. We could speak very robotic-like to one another in class or to our classmates, but we were not able to go out in the street and just use it right away. Actually, oftentimes what we learned in class was not what was spoken on the street. The class made it very simple for us, I think, learning just Mandarin, like standard Mandarin, because out on the street they spoke like a mix of Cantonese and Mandarin and lots of local languages. So it was definitely more complicated. But what we found was we were not using immediately what we were learning, which was unfortunate to us.
Yeah. But on the other side of that, being there in country, local, private tutoring, the constant problem that we came across is that maybe even the tutors themselves don't necessarily know a lot or are very skilled, which we talked about that before on some of our other videos. So it's really hard to know, can my tutor actually help me do the thing I want to do?
Right.
And that's just a really hard thing with tutoring in general.
Right. So we did try a blended method where we did some university Mandarin learning, some self-bought, self-invested textbook and app and flashcards and recordings that we had bought to work through ourselves. And we had a tutor that was local and didn't know how to teach very well. And we used free resources all at the same time. And this was super, super helpful for us. Our language did go up pretty quick. but we did also feel a little bit of we spent a lot of time just trying to debate and try to understand how the people where we were ended up speaking so differently from Standard Mandarin. And it's not that learning Standard Mandarin was a waste of time. Absolutely not. In fact, linguistically, we found it really fascinating because we love language. But if we did not love language, we would have just been really frustrated all the time, which would have been definitely a waste of time and money on our part. But linguistically, we really enjoyed it.
Right.
So what everything comes down to with all of these is motivation. If you pay and you invest a lot of money, you are more likely to invest in it and to see it through. If you don't invest, it is far more likely to say, I can't do this today, or I have a headache today, or I don't have to meet anybody today, or
Yeah.
it's just really easy to shelve it or to put it on the shelf, to put it away and not pick it up and procrastinate and I'll start again on Monday, or I'll start on the holiday, or
And ultimately, that is the problem that has to be addressed in language learning is how can you stay motivated?
Right.
Some people stay motivated in other ways. Some people stay more motivated when they're around people in a traditional classroom. Other people stay motivated when they can work through the course on their own. And that's where it comes down to for you guys is that you need to find out what ways you learn best and figure out ways that you can utilize the stuff around you, the stuff that's online, the stuff that's physically around you in order to level up your language learning.
In our next video this week, we are going to really delve into more weighing these options and to really give you a real pros and cons video on each of these, just so that if you still are having trouble making a decision for yourself or a family member, it will be helpful to have a much deeper review of them.
Yeah. But in the comments below, go ahead and tell us your favorite method of learning. Which way has been really good for you and your language learning? What method has maybe helped you the most?
Absolutely. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.